In these sessions, we're going to talk about the GoBox Studio, what it can do for you, how people are already using this in real life, in real world, from podcasters, from webinar hosts, from coaches, from people creating content for their YouTube. Like it has unlimited uses.
The reason we're putting this together in the first place, aside from having an excuse to hang out together more, me and Junaid, is that we've sold a whole bunch of these units, and we have a lot of people who are on the fence. And it's totally fine, but I think we keep answering the same questions over and over and over again inside of we do the live setups when new people buy it. We have people who are thinking about buying and have questions like, is it going to work here, or for this? What we're trying to do is build an online database or something that people could look at anytime, and we could point them to it. It's like, this is how you use it if you're a podcaster. This is how you use it if you're a videographer, if you're doing hybrid live events, if you're going solo on the road. So we're going to create all those different scenarios so that people can very quickly see if it is or isn't a good fit for them. So that's what we're going to be discussing. The first one we're kind of excited about talking about is the idea of using this as a podcast production center, a video podcast. So that's what we're going to be exploring today. Junaid, I know that you've been in the podcasting game for quite a bit longer than I have. So this is near and dear to you, I believe.
100%. 100% dear. And the reason for that is because podcasting has enabled me to connect with folks like yourself and folks that I'm hanging out with on a weekly basis, right? It's built that connection up. For example, Brian Shillman, who's popping those hearts on here, is one human being that I connected with. And we've got Dan Roth here as well, who's also somebody that I met through podcasting, through LinkedIn. And because of this, it's a community of people that are like-minded, that want to share their journey. And with Podcast in a Box, with the GoBox Studio, the portable studio, you can literally have a conversation anywhere in the world. In fact, when we were at PodFest, Brian Shulman here, he was using GoBox Studio in the lobby to do his own live show that ran for 4 hours in the GoBox Studio.
Cool. We should probably have a leaderboard somewhere for the longest running stream with a GoBox Studio,
That's a really great idea, leaderboard for GoBox Studio usage.
When I first created this, I'll give the really quick backstory.
Yeah.
I've got a digital media agency. We create, several thousand videos every month for our clients. And I thought of this as a video tool, as a tool for, business owners who are really busy, to, instead of lugging around, 4 or 5 bags of tripods, adapters, lenses, cameras, SD cards, cables, extension cables, monitors, it's a whole lot, right? And having to lug all that stuff around or hire someone else to do that, it's a hassle. It's either expensive or it's a hassle, right? And you had this dichotomy. It's like, either I spend a whole bunch of money to hire a team to do this for me, or I got to do it myself. Neither of those sound attractive if you're a small operation or you want us to stay light. So that's what this is. This is that solution that you don't need a team and you don't need a whole bunch of gear. You just have this one suitcase, right? So that's what we created it for. And I think the first guy that ever asked me about this, his name is Alex Hormozy. I don't know, some people may have heard of it, but he comes up to me and he's just like, Ken, because I help a lot of the people in his circles, like people he knows, I do their videos for them, right? So then they referred him to me, and he's like, Ken, I really want to have something that I can take on the go with me. And I said, well, we don't do that. But he figuratively arm wrestled me and convinced me to help design something for him. So we did that. And it was a really rough prototype, but he loved it. And that's what, I think it was really early stages of his YouTube channel. About 18 months ago when he was just starting, he used that a lot. And all the early videos, you can see, it's not going to look super fancy because I think he was shooting in his closet. But that's about the time that he got it and started using it. And so that's where the inspiration came from. So how can I help my clients by providing them with better tools for better videos? And I've been sending these out to my clients for the last 18 months, and they're all using it. And that just makes it better for us because we get better footage that we can edit, and it makes it better for them because, well, it just looks better, right? Looks better, easier to use.
Exactly.
Already all set up.
Removes the friction. It gives you the ability to create really high quality content. And I think the poll is 2 minutes, you're set up and ready to go. But we've had a lot of people come to us and say, hey, can I buy it and put my own gear? Like, for example, Billy Thorpe here, he just commented, chimed in. He's like, hey, can I buy the box and install my own gear? And we've had a whole bunch of conversations around it. Ken, do you want to address this?
Yeah, totally. I think that the reason we don't encourage it at first. Well, first of all, I want to address Billy, and it's a really good question. I'm thinking about this because coming from the outside, I think I would ask the same question because I'm pretty geeky, nerdy when it comes to video, and I have my own gear, or I have a very specific setup in mind.
Yeah.
I think that in your case, if you want to bring your own gear and install it, then you should book a conversation with me or Junaid, so we understand what you're trying to do. Because sometimes there may be limitations that we wouldn't even think of until someone actually says, hey, can I bring my Black Magic camera and pop it on? And the first thing I would ask if someone says that is, well, what's the power supply? How much power is it going to suck? Also, what's the HDMI orientation? I don't know if the cable we provide with it is going to work.
Right.
And then when it folds, I need to know the shape so that it's going to fold into the thing properly without smashing another piece of equipment.
Right.
So like if you are tech savvy, then let's have that conversation and I'll tell you if the stuff you have is going to work with it. But for me to say across the board, yes, you could bring whatever, your own camera, your own lenses, your own lights, your own microphone, and it's going to work. I think that would be very unscrupulous because I don't know if it's going to work. I really don't. We have tested certain cameras and certain lights and certain lenses, but this thing, the way it folds, there has to be a certain weight, shape, and size in order for it to work together. And and also power consumption is a thing.
Yeah.
The cable placement, these are all issues that I cannot say across the board you can bring your own gear.
The beautiful part about the equipment that's on here, and sure, I can bring on my full frame camera and attach to it. But like you said, if I'm folding it up, I might have to take off that device. Maybe I can put a quick release head on there, so then I can attach any camera. But when I'm packing up, I just remove it. Again, it's doable, but it's increasing that friction of you getting to creating that content. And people that we're working with, they're like, hey, I just want to turn on my camera and start recording. And we're trying to remove as much friction as possible with this.
Yeah, that's the idea. And, I do like to advertise, this sets up in 2 minutes. And I've done it many times, my team. I think if it's your very first time, it might take 5 to 10 minutes, after you've watched us demonstrate it. But if you're going to be attaching, all these other custom parts that might not fold as smoothly, then, that setup time goes up. And, so it's a little bit, let's just say that there's so many variables, it's hard for me to answer that and be able to still fulfill my guarantees about stability and things like that.
Agreed. Let's talk about people that are already using it as is, right? We've got a few people that are using it at conventions. For example, our good friend Hala Taha, we were at Podcast Movement, and she was like, hey, Junaid, you have the GoBox Studio, right? Let's do a recording. So I set that unit up in the middle of the convention floor where you could see in the background all the little booths. And she's like, all right, I'm going to record a few videos for her own podcast, for her own sponsors that she's carrying around. So she had this little element packets, like plugged on the wireless microphone, turned the lights on, adjusted a little bit, and she was ready to go to record the content for herself. The portability, I think, of the device is unquestionable.
Yeah, well, carry-on size, 14 kilos, which is whatever in
about
pounds.
28 and a half, 30 pounds.
Yeah, something like that. So, that in itself just makes it very, very easy to use. Somebody who I was a guest on in their podcast, and they picked up one of these units, and we actually did our podcast on the unit. So it was really nice for me to, have this remote experience with someone in the US, and we're both on GoBox Studios. Barrett Matthews, right? And God, he is so much fun to talk with. He's such a great podcaster, but he told me straight up front from the beginning, like, he's not a techie guy. He just needs to have equipment that works. And he didn't even, like, when we did the podcast, we weren't on the road, we were at home. But his take was like, he's always been using his previous setup with a green screen, and because he didn't want the background to show, because he felt it didn't look so great.
Yeah.
When he set up the GoBox Studio, he's just like, well, the background is still the same, but now it looks pretty because it's all nice and blurred, and it has that
Yeah.
nice blurred effect. And that is simply because we do, we put the best quality glass. When I say glass, I mean lens that we can find, and that's the 16 millimeter. And it's the same one I'm using. Are you using the same one right now?
I'm using a 35 with
35. Okay,
35
similar.
with f1.8. Yeah, similar.
So 16 millimeter f1.4. What that means is you get, like in the background, what you're seeing here. This is not, fake blur. This is, where you see the kind of jagged lines around the head and stuff. This is,
Yeah.
real optical, bokeh is what we're getting. And that's what we
Yes.
put on every single GoBox. And that's kind of the reason why we kind of locked in what camera works, because that's what we've tested. You should see the room next door. I've got so many. It's a graveyard of cameras because I've tested so many just to see what's going to fit, what's going to look good, what's going to work, and things like that.
Yeah.
So for podcasters, I didn't even think about podcasters when I was setting this up, but it seems like they're the ones who are picking these up really fast.
No, 100%.
Another situation, because we're talking about like podcasters, but a lot of people, 3 people I can think of off the top of my head. What they told me is they've got a great home studio, right? They bought their lights and their camera and everything's working. They don't touch it. They just show up, you hit record, and they're live. But they wanted a studio at home as well, because maybe on the weekends they just want to shoot, a piece of content here or there, or in the evenings they want to do a live coaching session with their clients, right? Because we have a lot of coaches on the team. Sorry, in our client base, not the team. But then here's what happens when you go home and start, putting up a softbox light and a tripod and all the adapter and all that to try to make it look better. Then what usually happens is your spouse or your roommate is going to be just like, hey, could you move that crap out of here? We want to have dinner, or hey, we're trying to watch a movie here, or like, or your kid is going to start, yanking on the cords or tripping on the tripods. And tripping on tripods is the worst thing, right?
It's the worst.
So you can't leave it out because it sucks to have your house starting to look like a studio. And setting it up and taking it down each time also sucks. So your only alternative is just use just your laptop, right? Yeah. And that folds up real quick, but then you're sacrificing quality. I think I'm stealing someone's IP here by saying this, but it's a place between home and work. The idea of discounts is really, it's just the economy of scale. And, when things are in larger quantities or we get access to, let's say, a large network of someone who has, let's say, a certain leverage in certain circles that we want to get more exposure into, then we could make deals like that. So we're still growing. So at this point, we're more flexible than we'll ever be as a company. Yeah. And, but as things keep growing and picking up, then we'll probably have to, lock in more, contracts and agreements that that are not as flexible. But yeah, now would be your chance if you're looking for some kind of deal. Someone orders something and we ship it to them. So it's all direct sales. I'll explain how things are working right now. We have custom parts being manufactured in up to 13 different factories. Actually, not up to, it's exactly 13 factories. That's things like the metal parts. It's made from sheet metal. It's being painted and cut, probably in that reverse order, cut, bent, then painted. And then we actually have our own custom PCB board that we had to design for power distribution and management, because it is not easy. Well, put it this way: if you see what you see, the lights, the camera, the microphones, Stream Deck, you think, well, I could just plug that into a hub and stick it into my laptop. It's all going to work. I dare you to try that. 9 out of 10 times it's going to not work because of power consumption issues, heat issues, and also the amount of power that you're going to get through the hub, and if it's going to be able to distribute it properly. We create our own custom equipment. It's going to enable you to just have one cord that goes to your laptop, even if it's entry level, like a MacBook Air, M1 even. That's what's that, 3 years old, 4 years old, 5? I don't know.
But yeah, almost 3 years old now.
3 years old, yeah. Get an entry one. It's sub $1,000. One cord goes into there. It's going to charge your laptop, connect to 2 video sources, right? That's going to be your camera and whatever you want to bring in with your iPad or tablet. And I think the question he was asking is our distribution process. But I just want to explain like where these parts are coming from and how much of it is custom built. Everything is assembled in Japan, quality controlled in Japan. Yeah. And then people order from the site. That's Goboxstudio.com. Go check it out. Buy 2 or 3, maybe 5 if you want. And as soon as you order it, most of our customers, 90%, are coming from the States. So we're going to FedEx it straight to you. straight from our distribution center in Japan. We are working on getting a place in the States so that it can get to you even faster. But right now, we can pretty much guarantee it'll be there in a week or less. That's what we're seeing. And this is the reason why we want to get distribution centers in the US. Every now and then, customs is going to have you fill out some extra forms around, like,
Mm-hmm.
because technically you're importing something, right? Because you're buying it
Yes.
from Japan, which is where our assembly station is, and it's being shipped to the US. Just so everybody in the States knows, in case they're interested, we have incorporated in the States as a C Corp, but we haven't got everything spun up to full speed yet. But we will be there very soon, and then everything's going to be much more accessible. I think in 90% of the cases that people get this, they're actually improving the quality. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to judge your set because I haven't seen it, and you might have like a sick setup, with 8K streaming and I don't know, red cameras or something. Then I would stand corrected. And here's the thing: there's this sliding scale, between
Mm-hmm.
portability and quality. And I've done so much traveling and shooting; it's always been just a two-dimensional thing, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like we've made it into a triangle where instead of having to choose portability or quality, now there's a third option, and that's the GoBox Studio, where you're not getting you're not sacrificing either one.
Yeah.
A lot of people ask about the actual interface, and a lot of people ask like what kind of mics do they use and stuff. So let's
Mm-hmm.
just go through the hardware that comes with the
Yeah.
main thing we've got.
Absolutely. So the Gobox Studio has a few awesome studio components, right? We have the really high-end camera, which captures the video part of things, and then we also
Yeah,
have
so that's the Canon M200. A lot of people ask about that. APS-C
yes,
sensor, so then you can get 4K. There is a little bit of a crop when you go into 4K, but all that means is you take a half step back, and then you're framed pretty much exactly the same.
yeah. So we've got the Canon M200 with the Sigma f1.4 16 millimeter lens, which on the crop sensor is equal to a 24 millimeter lens. Then we've got wireless microphones. We've got the Rode wireless microphones right here.
Yes.
And
Comes with two of them.
yep, so that way you can easily talk to your guest in person. And if you're not in person, guess what? We're doing something very similar. We're actually using some of the settings that are configured on the GoBox Studio. Like,
I think the Stream Deck is probably the most underappreciated thing about the GoBox. People don't
I
understand how
agree.
that will totally transform the streaming experience and the recording experience.
Yeah, yeah,
But you have to see it to understand it. Maybe, and you know
exactly.
what? Maybe the next one's going to be all about the Stream Deck, and we need to
Maybe,
have a
well, yeah.
split screen where it's showing, your fingers, and
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, I push this button and this button and stuff. I don't know.
No, absolutely. We could totally set that up.
I want to bring up something about the audio system, right? Because one of my customers who bought two of these, he told me, hey, I'm doing this live event in Tokyo, Japan. And since I live in Tokyo, he's just like, you should totally come and join. So when I got there, his idea was it's live hybrid. So there's about 40 people live in a conference room, and then about 700 people live virtual, right?
Mm,
And he needed to make it so that everybody in the room could, when you pass the mic around, their voice would be on the room speakers, and everybody virtual could hear it. And if anyone
yeah.
virtual is sharing over, we had a Zoom type of setup, then
Mm-hmm.
that would come on the main speakers as well.
Yeah.
On top of it, he wanted a close-up shot of himself on the stage where he could control the computer and the slides and draw on
Yeah.
his iPad, which he loves doing. And then he needed a system in the back to control everything. So he took his two Go boxes and he had one on the stage with him, set up as a standing desk, so that because you're standing and presenting, then he's standing
Mm-hmm.
and controlling the stream.
Yeah.
And in the back of the room, the second Go box, we took the camera, instead of facing it forward like what we normally have, just flipped the camera around and it covered the whole room and the stage. And that became the second source. So the one in
Nice.
the back was the one that with the Stream Deck, you just bringing up comments from the audience, switching cameras, highlighting different people who are speaking and stuff. And the reason I'm bringing this up is this is, a lot of people look at this and they're just like, so how do I use that? Because most people are used to like a little lav mic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And usually, you would just clip it like this. Is if you're wearing black, then it's pretty much going to disappear.
Yeah.
And this is typically what you do. This is 7 hours battery life, 200-meter range or yards
It's
if you're
really
in the
good.
US. But then when we're at the site, I picked up one of these things.
I think you just came from barbecue.
I did. I literally did come from a barbecue. But this is what we used, and people totally flipped out. And what happens is that you take the wireless mic, and this is gonna just slide onto here, right? So
Oh snap!
now you have a hand mic, and then this is gonna pop on top,
What?
and this is exactly like a hand
A
mic, and this
handheld
is what they
microphone.
passed around the room to get like stuff from the audience. There is no cable, absolutely, and
Right, it's wireless.
exactly, and all of a sudden, all it is, it's a stick and a piece of foam that's made to work exactly with these wireless
Mm-hmm.
microphones. But
Mm-hmm.
when people saw it, they're just like, holy crap, that's amazing. Now I feel like I'm holding a mic. It feels like a totally different experience.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think the form factor completely changed how the equipment was perceived. This is, I don't know, for some people it's a game changer. For me, I think it's a gimmick. But honestly, it totally changes how people perceive. This is the difference. Like, hey, how's it going? I want to talk about this, and bringing this up, like a little square puck, like what is that, right? Or
Yeah.
this. Now you're it's like a TV
Now
show.
you're legit. Yeah.
But about the lighting and the cameras, I know Junaid has a similar setup, but I have the same lights that are in the GoBox Studio. I got it,
Mm.
but they're on my desk. I've got the same camera and the same lens, the same settings. So you'd get something really similar with the GoBox Studio once you get it. And I purposely do it like this because if I don't use my own gear, then
Yeah.
that doesn't say very much for how much I trust it. Now the difference here is when this is my home studio. So when I start streaming every day or when I record my content, I don't need to pick up and charge a wireless mic and clip it on, even though I
Right.
could. I just have this mic that's always here. So there's
Mm-hmm.
no charging involved and I just show up. So that's the only difference between the setup you're seeing here and a GoBox Studio
Yeah.
is the mic and the audio setup because it's just more practical for me to walk up. But the same camera, same lens, same lights, you're going to get a very similar look with the GoBox Studio. The tricky thing about the legs, I'll tell you, is our safety concerns, which is why we're taking a long time on it. Is once you get something that's 13 kilos, what's that, 28 pounds ish, and you start elevating it higher, then the safety implications of like, hey, what if someone kicks a leg out, or what if someone leans on it, right? And how much damage it's going to cause, not just to the gear itself, but to people or things around it. Those are the things I'm concerned about, and which is why we're spending a lot of time on making sure before we release something that we really feel that it's safe and that we rigorously test it. It is in the works, but we don't want to release anything that's dangerous. That's the reason it's not out yet.
This was a ton of fun, man. There's so much around the GoBox Studio that had got in. Like you spent a ton of hours on coming up with this final version that people have been using.
Please put your comments there, your questions, and then we'll be answering them week by week. And until then, Junaid, any more wise words of wisdom?
Go out and create content because that is the only way you're going to get better at creating more content.
Agreed, 100%. All right, guys. Appreciate you guys tuning in.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. And we'll catch you in the next video.